Well, we just learned that when beleaguered defense secretary and former Fox News host Pete Hegseth isn't texting highly sensitive and classified military plans to journalists and his wife and his brother and his personal attorney, he is spending thousands of taxpayer dollars on a makeup studio in the Pentagon for himself. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. It's not a good week to be Pete Hegseth. Quite frankly, it's not been a good 3 months to be Pete Hegseth. This disastrously unpopular, incompetent, inexperienced Trump appointee is now getting brutally roasted for another thing. As Mediaite and others are reporting, Pete Hegseth's Pentagon makeup studio gets brutally mocked by critics. Can't make this up. We'll get into the polling about Pete Hegseth in just a moment, but let's break down this report. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was the focus of widespread mockery on Wednesday after CBS News revealed, quote, he recently ordered modifications to a room next to the Pentagon press briefing room to retrofit it with a makeup studio that can be used to prepare for television appearances. Hegseth, the former Fox News weekend morning show host, plans to spend, quote, several $1,000s on the makeup studio, according to CBS sources. A Defense Department spokesman brushed off the upgrade in a statement to CBS, saying, quote, changes and upgrades to the Pentagon briefing room are nothing new and routinely happening during changes in administration. Somebody called Doge because I have a painful, blatant abuse of taxpayer dollars, waste, fraud, and abuse by the defense secretary. So maybe before Elon Musk leaves the White House, goes out the door, maybe he should crush this using Doge. While the Pentagon may believe that a makeup studio renovation is routine, critics were quick to pounce. The Atlantic's Tom Nichols, a former professor at the U.S. Naval War College, shared the report and commented, quote, staying laser focused on lethality and warfighting. Nichols' colleague, Tyler Austin Harper, replied, quote, they stormed the beaches of Normandy so this man could put a makeup studio at the Pentagon. Representative Ted Lieu, a Democrat, reacted, quote, nothing screams warrior culture more than a makeup studio. Hegseth was derelict in his duties by repeatedly using his personal phone to disclose ongoing combat operations, and now is wasting taxpayer dollars. How does a makeup studio at the Pentagon help the troops? He needs to resign. Another House Democrat, Greg Cesar, replied, quote, new makeup studios, private trips on government helicopters, millions for Trump's golf outings, billions to Musk companies. Trump and his cabinet think working people should lose Medicaid and Social Security, but they couldn't care less about efficiency when they benefit themselves. Below are some additional responses, so let's take a look. Democratic Senator Tim Kaine says, you can't make this up. Wait, I guess you can. I see what you did there, Senator. Congressman Jared Moskowitz, a Democrat, responded with a series of emojis, but added a lipstick emoji at the end. So the fist emoji, the American flag emoji, and the fire emoji is a reference to the first Pete Hegseth scandal of the Trump administration, the first Signal Gate, because that was a text response in that text thread on the Signal app that Hegseth was on alongside Vice President J.D. Vance and Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, Director of the CIA, Michael Waltz, the National Security Advisor, and others. That was one of the responses. So Moskowitz has been employing those three emojis to troll Republicans and to troll Trump, and he also, of course, added the lipstick emoji as well, makeup. Laura Rosen, send Pete Warfighter Hegseth your makeup tricks, ladies. Dan Pfeiffer of Pod Save America, looking forward to Pete Hegseth's Get Ready With Me videos, which is, where they put on makeup while discussing either news or politics or some sort of topic for, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. That's funny. That's really funny. Mike Rothschild, warfighting lethality, and just with the right hint of rouge. As Vidate says, lethality, warfighters, push-ups. Peter Hamby. Let's see, American Bridge 21st Century. How long till this makeup artist is added to the war plan signal chat? That's a good point. Mr. Anti-DEI Lethality, Secretary of Makeup and Moose. Let's see. He's a Spotlight Ranger. He's a Blue Falcon. He's a Rugby Queen. He's becoming Katy Perry. Democratic strategist Mike Nellis don't have the money for silly things like cancer research for kids, but got tons of money for Pete Hegseth's makeup studio at the Pentagon. And I remember Mike Nellis has been on Piers Morgan a couple of times, killing it. I wonder if Piers Morgan's going to discuss Pete Hegseth's makeup studio, because you bet your ass that if this were a Democratic Secretary of Defense, This would be covered on Piers Morgan ad infinitum. But we'll see what happens with the double standard. So, yes, Pete Hegseth is once again getting brutally roasted, as well he should. Let's get into the polling, because Hegseth wasn't particularly popular to begin with, and his situation's only gotten worse. Harry Enton from CNN breaks it down.
I mean, look, Pete Hegseth is a problem for Donald Trump. And the way we can see this pretty clearly is, you sort of set the baseline level that you'd expect in terms of popularity in the Trump administration. That's Trump himself. He's at minus 5 points on net favorability. Not so hot, but not terrible. Look at where Pete Hegseth is. Way underwater at minus 14 percentage points, nearly 10 points below where Donald Trump is. If Trump is par, Pete Hegseth is way off the reservation at this particular point. So much more unpopular than you would expect of the average cabinet member. And indeed, Pete Hegseth at this particular point is the least liked cabinet member in Donald Trump's administration. In fact, he is the least liked Secretary of Defense. You have to go all the way back to Donald Rumsfeld back at the end of the Bush administration to find a Secretary of Defense who is less liked than Pete Hegseth is currently.
Ouch. You are the least liked defense secretary since Donald Rumsfeld of the Bush administration. Ooh. That is a stunning indictment of Pete Hegseth. Again, the whole reason that Trump hired him was because of his charisma, intelligent, presentation, his ability to win people over. And he's that disliked? Not good. And we haven't had any additional polling since the second Signalgate fiasco. So that number that Harry Enton quoted you, that's from just prior to the second Signalgate fiasco. That's the pre-second signal where he's sending military information to his wife, his brother, and his personal attorney. I imagine the polling on Hegseth is going to get considerably worse. So then, of course, the question is he going to fire? Is he going to fire Hegseth? There's been some reporting indicating that the White House is seeking to replace Pete Hegseth, looking to alternatives. Trump himself has doubled down on Hegseth in public. But CNN has an interesting report. Trump is unlikely to dismiss Hegseth, but officials are troubled by disarray in the Pentagon chief's inner circle. A defiant defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, booked himself on the TV network where he used to work as a host Tuesday morning in a bid to address the fallout over revelations that he discussed military plans in a second Signal group chat, this time with his wife and brother. But after Hegseth faced multiple direct questions in the Fox News interview about his inner circle being in disarray, the appearance was seen by some officials as only calling more attention to the story rather than tamping down on the coverage, according to two people familiar with how the interview was perceived within the administration. Yet Donald Trump is unlikely to dismiss Hegseth and has spoken to him twice since the New York Times and CNN reported on the second Signal group chat Sunday night. In their first call, Trump said he had Hegseth's back and voiced frustration at leakers. He said, "We're trying to damage his administration," according to a person familiar with the conversation. Trump has since been soliciting feedback from people around him about Hegseth's performance during the conversations, according to two people familiar with the comments. So far, most, if not all, has been positive about the Pentagon chief. Trump is extremely hesitant to fire any cabinet official at this point in his term, much less Hegseth, given how hard his team fought to get him confirmed in the first place. Yet the state of affairs in his inner circle has troubled some senior officials who want to see changes made to how Hegseth's team in the front office of the Pentagon operates. The chaos prevailing at the Pentagon has not been lost on the White House, where officials have watched with concern as Hegseth struggles to contain the dysfunction and as his inner circle implodes. Hegseth's most trusted advisors are now his wife, his lawyer, and his junior military aide, who may be soon appointed to his new chief of staff, multiple people familiar with the matter said. Others close to Hegseth, including his advisor, retired Army Sergeant Major Eric Garrison, who served with Hegseth in Iraq and was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross last month, have gotten so frustrated by the turmoil that they've indicated to colleagues that they may resign, two of the sources said. CNN reached out to Garrison. Some of Hegseth's closest former advisors have issued warnings this week about turmoil inside the Pentagon. They include his former spokesman, John Oliot, and three former senior officials Hegseth fired last week. Top advisor Dan Caldwell, Deputy Chief of Staff Darren Selnick, and Colin Carroll, who was Chief of Staff to the Deputy Secretary of Defense. Quote, "It's been a month of total chaos at the Pentagon. From leaks of sensitive operational plans to mass firings, the dysfunction is now a major distraction for Trump, who deserves better from his senior leadership," Oliot said in a statement obtained by CNN. One congressional Republican, Don Bacon of Nebraska, escalated his public calls Tuesday for Hegseth to be held accountable. Asked Tuesday by CNN's Jake Tapper on The Lead what he would do if he were the president and his defense secretary had acted as Hegseth did, Bacon said, quote, I would hold them accountable and I'd fire them. Putting sensitive information on an application like Signal, Bacon said, was, quote, very foolish. But Hegseth's response, describing the chat earlier on Fox on Tuesday as, quote, informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things, exacerbated the offense. Quote, he could recover from that with candor. But when you deny it's a problem, I think it makes it even worse. Of course, that's the Trump school of thought, right? Taught to him by Roy Cohn, which you never accept accountability, you never accept responsibility, you deny, deflect, and attack. Hegseth is emulating Trump in that respect. Carroll's firing has also strained Hegseth's relationship with Deputy Secretary of Defense Steve Feinberg, who brought Carroll on as his chief of staff and was not consulted before he was placed on leave, the sources said. Quote, he is in full paranoia, back against the wall mode, said one of the sources familiar with Hegseth's state of mind over the last month. Yikes. That's not good to have a paranoid defense secretary who's also reportedly someone who struggled with alcohol and who was very manic during his Fox News interview. This isn't good. And you combine all of that, the incompetence, the inexperience, the leaking, the mishandling of classified and highly sensitive military information with the fact that he is gleefully spending thousands of dollars of taxpayer dollars for a makeup studio to make himself look better, a multi-$1,000 vanity project, while Elon Musk is running roughshod in Social Security and Treasury, looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. And here we have Hegseth doing this. There's a reason he's getting brutally mocked, and he deserves it. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.